Well, Yud Lamed Peretz is also the school. It's a long story.
Yes, he's a very important figure in the Yiddishist world. So.
Yeah.
All right. All right, good deal. So we will get started now. So thank you everyone for joining us. And it's great to have the crew here. Thank you, Anne, for letting me know that you wanted to come on. And I'm just going to take a second to make an announcement, which is to the effect that we will be having, as you know, our High Holiday services will begin on Friday evening. Probably most of this group has received email to that effect. The Machzor will be on the screen. So if you would like to participate and you don't have a screen, so this is really for Marjorie, Phyllis, and Judy, please let me know so I can get you a copy of the Machzor, a hard copy of it. I'm going to ask.
What Machzor are you using?
We're using what's called Lev Shalem. It's a Machzor put together by the conservative movement. We're going to be partnering with my other congregation in. Yes, there it is. Right? Thank you. It's on the screen. Yeah. So Anne already has one. That's great. So we're going to be partnering with my other congregation, and that's the one they use. And yeah, so that's that.
I would like one.
Good, Judy. I'll bring you by one. All right. And so I'm taking it, Phyllis and Marjorie, that you don't want one, which is fine.
I want you to explain again what it is, please.
Oh, it's a High Holiday prayer book.
Oh, a prayer book for the, no.
Okay.
No, thank you.
That's just fine. That's just fine.
One other
High Holiday services.
Rabbi, on the other night.
I'm sorry, Phyllis?
Anne, this is Anne. During the Shlichot,
oh, Dan, okay.
I could not read very well what was on the screen. It was too small.
Yeah, I apologize for that. On top of, there's for some reason the text that I prepared would only display itself in portrait mode and not in landscape mode, so it was unusable. And the one that the conservative movement had online was basically unreadable. So it was that was among the reasons why I translated pretty much everything that we did, because it was almost impossible to read, which was very frustrating. All right. So we're going to go and get this story, and we're going to read it. And I've been looking forward to this because I really love this story. All right. Okay, there we go. Now I will share it with you, and then we were gonna get going. Oh man. I keep on hoping that I'm gonna get a new computer. They keep on telling me I'm gonna get a new computer. All right.
So
maybe one of these days I'll get a new computer.
Could I get this on my computer?
You're talking Marjorie. Yeah, Marjorie, if you want it on your computer, what you're going to have to do is go to the email that I sent this afternoon and click one of the links on that, and then that way you can have it. Otherwise it won't happen. Okay, so there's some random noises in the back. So I think what I'm going to do during my reading of the story, I think what we'll do is I'll mute everybody. If at any point you want to make a comment or you want to ask a question, please do not hesitate to raise your hand electronically. If you can wave your real hand, but since I'm sharing the screen, I'm not sure that I'll be able to see you. So please do raise your hand electronically. If worse comes to worse, unmute yourself and say, Rabbi Jim, and I promise I will stop if I hear you. All right, so good. I'm going to mute everybody now. Okay. All right. Oh, this computer. Oy. I'm sorry, everybody. This is why I'm so frustrated with this computer.
That article, if you call it up, really does need to be magnified.
Yes, exactly. So I've magnified it considerably. If I could get rid of this list of participants, if I could get it out of the way so I could see the thing, then we would be in good shape. All right. There we go. Okay. Oh God, oh my God, this is unbelievable. This is so frustrating. Oh my God.
I've got it on 200.
There we go. Yes, I got it on 200 also. All right, there we go. Okay. If Not Higher by Yud Lamed Peretz. All right. Early every Friday morning at the time of the penitential prayers, right, which is now, right, the rabbi of Nemeruff would vanish. He was nowhere to be seen, neither in the synagogue nor in the two houses of study, nor at a minyan. A minyan is a prayer group. And he was certainly not at home. His door stood open. Whoever wished could go in and out. No one would steal from the rabbi, but not a living creature was within. Where could the rabbi be? Where should he be? In heaven, no doubt. The rabbi has plenty of business to take care of just before the days of awe, the high holidays, right? The Yamim Noraim, we say in Hebrew. Jews, God bless them, need livelihood, peace, health, and good matches. And I think this means shadchanut, meaning matches for weddings. But I think Jews also need good matches to light the Shabbat candles. I was amazed on Saturday night that I was able to light my Havdalah candle with the one match that I had in my house. So now I need to go and buy some more matches. They want to be pious and good, but our sins are so great. And Satan of the 1,000 eyes watches the whole earth from one end to the other. What he sees, he reports. He denounces, informs. Who can help us if not the rabbi? And that is what the people thought. But once a Litvak came and he left. All right, so before Anne Umansky identified herself as a Litvak. So Anne, when you say that, are you willing to tell people what you mean by that? And you have to unmute yourself. You're muted. So click the microphone button. It's in the bottom left-hand corner.
Okay, can
there
you
you
hear?
go.
I can't see
Good
you
deal.
anymore. I've lost the I seem to have lost the picture, but I can hear you.
Good.
Anyway, I was made aware of the difference between the Galicianer and the Litvaks in also the differentiation between the Misnagdim and the Hasidim.
Yeah.
And at one point, the narrator says, these Litvaks, they sort of get themselves caught up in law and stuff like that, but they have no respect for the holy book, really. And I think there's a kind of correlation between the Litvaks and the Misnagdim and the
100%.
And the Hasidim. And the Litvaks were rationalists. They tore things apart and looked at them rationally, or so they claimed.
Right. So they claimed, right, and they were, and you're absolutely correct about the Misnagim and the Hasidim. So these are the two big divisions of Jews starting in the 18th century, and Hasidism was a revival.
But there was also
could have access to God, right, and very focused on the power of the books. Right, and less concerned about law, right? More concerned about, more concerned. I mean, not that they didn't follow all the rules, right? It was just that you didn't have to be a big chacham in order to be a chassid, right? You didn't have to be a really smart,
Right.
intellectualized kind of person. And there was a big internecine strife between what were called the Hasidim, right, and the Misnagdim, who were which is the word for opponents. So they were the opponents of Hasidism.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
Yes, so sure, of course.
Were the Hasidim associated with mysticism or not?
Yes, I mean, yes, and that was one of the reasons, right, why the Misnagdim were so opposed to them, because first of all, they had this idea that Jewish mysticism could be and should be accessible to, you know, the Pintele Yids, you know, just the simple Jewish people, and they also which meant they ended up popularizing, or I think a Litvak might say, dumbing down, right, the very abstract notions of the Kabbalah into sort of the kind of Hasidic teachings that we're kind of used to. You know, if you've read any of the tales of the Hasidim, you know, they tend to be very wise, but they don't tend necessarily to focus on being super abstract. Although that's a terrible generalization, and I shouldn't be making it that way, because there obviously are in the Hasidic movement incredibly erudite and intellectually astute people. But no Misnagdim would acknowledge that. So,
Yeah, because what struck me about Peretz has always been his mysticism.
Yeah. And I mean, and he was also, I mean, Peretz is a very interesting figure. I don't know that much about him, but it seems very interesting because, you know, on one hand, he's, as Naomi has already pointed out, right, he's a darling of the Yiddishist secularizers, right? But at the same time, right, he obviously has a real sense of affection, maybe even connection to this world of Hasidic. Of the Hasidic master here, this Rebbe who, you know, whose followers think he goes to heaven.
Yes.
All right, so let's go back to the story. All right. He was nowhere to be seen. Oh, I read that one. But once a Litvak came and he laughed. You know the Litvaks. They think little of the holy books, but stuff themselves with Talmud and law, right? So actually, if there's a Yiddishist around, I'm interested in this notion, right, that they think little of the holy books, but stuff themselves with Talmud and law. So what are the holy books? Does that mean Torah? Does that mean the Hasidic commentaries on the Torah? Does it mean Kabbalah? I'm really not sure what is being what is included in that category, because one would not necessarily be wrong to say that the Talmud is also in the category of holy books. All right, so this Litvak points to a passage in the Gemara. It sticks in your eyes, where it is written that even Moses, our teacher, did not ascend to heaven during his lifetime, but remained suspended 2.5 feet below. Go argue with a Litvak. All right. So which, you know, again, I if I had been really on top of things, I would have gone and try to search out this supposed piece of the Gemara. I don't know if it's a real piece of the Gemara or if Peretz is just making fun of him. But just in case you don't know what the Gemara is, right? The Gemara is the sort of later part of the Talmud. The Talmud consists of two primary texts: the Mishnah, which was written down in around the year 200, and then hold on one second. My phone is ringing. I got to make it stop. How do I make it stop? I have no idea. You'd figure I've been working here 5 years. You'd figure I'd know how to use the phones. All right. Well, we'll just let it ring. So the Gemara is a sort of extended, I guess you could say, commentary on the Mishnah, but it's much more than just a commentary on the Mishnah. The Mishnah ends up being kind of a jumping off point, and very often the Gemara goes off in all kinds of tangents that have nothing to do with the Mishnah that is connected to. And a lot of what happens in the Gemara, right, it is exactly what, at least in the style of what Peretz is talking about here, right? This story about Moses is obviously not a law, right? It's not, no one shall ascend to heaven before he dies, but needs to stop 2.5 feet short of heaven while he's still alive. Like, that's clearly not a law. This is an agadah, right? A midrash, a sort of a play on the biblical story. All right. So if he's not in heaven, where can the rabbi be? That's not my business, said the Litvak, shrugging. Yet all the while, what a Litvak can do, he is scheming to find out. That same night, right after the evening prayers, the Litvak steals into the rabbi's room, slides under the rabbi's bed, and waits. He'll wait all night and discover where the rabbi vanishes and what he does during the penitential prayers. Someone else might have gotten drowsy and fallen asleep, but a Litvak is never at a loss. He recites a whole tractate of the Talmud by heart. Right, so that's what you do, Anne, right? When you're trying to stay awake.
Yes.
I did that. All right. At dawn, he hears the call to prayers. The rabbi has already been awake for a long time. The Litvak has heard him groaning for a whole hour. Whoever has heard the rabbi of Nemeroth groan knows how much sorrow for all Israel, how much suffering lies in each groan. A man's heart might break hearing it, but a Litvak is made of iron. He listens and remains where he is. The rabbi, long life to him, lies on the bed, and the Litvak under the bed. Then the Litvak hears the beds in the house begin to creak. He hears people jumping out of their beds, mumbling a few Jewish words, pouring water on their fingernails, banging doors. Everyone has left. It is again quiet and dark. A bit of light from the moon shines through the shutters. Afterward, the Litvak admitted that when he found himself alone with the rabbi, a great fear took hold of him. Goose pimples spread across his skin, and the roots of his earlocks pricked him like needles. A trifle to be alone with the rabbi at the time of the penitential prayers. But a Litvak is stubborn, so he quivered like a fish in water and remained where he was. Finally, the rabbi, long life to him, arises. First, he does what befits a Jew. Then he goes to the clothes closet and takes out a bundle of peasant clothes, linen trousers, high boots, a coat, a big felt hat, and a long, wide leather belt studded with brass nails. The rabbi gets us dressed. From his coat pocket dangles the end of a heavy peasant rope. The rabbi goes out, and the Litvak follows him. On the way, the Litvak stops in the kitchen, bends down, takes an axe from under the bed, puts it in his belt, and leaves the house. The Litvak trembles, but continues to follow. The hushed dread of the days of awe hangs over the dark streets. Every once in a while, a cry rises from some minion reciting the penitential prayers or from a sickbed. Right, very interesting, right, that the rabbi is not praying the penitential prayers, right? He's not in shul doing his thing, right? He's doing something else. All right. The rabbi hugs to the sides of the streets, keeping to the shade of the houses. He glides from house to house, and the Litvak after him. The Litvak hears the sound of his heartbeats mingling with the sound of the rabbi's heavy step. But he keeps on going and follows the rabbi to the outskirts of town. A small wood stands behind the town. The rabbi, long life to him, enters the wood. He takes 30 or 40 steps, stops by a small tree. The Litvak, overcome with amazement, watches the rabbi take the axe out of his belt and strike the tree. He hears the tree creak and fall. The rabbi chops the tree into logs and the logs into sticks. Then he makes a bundle with the wood and ties it with the rope in his pocket. He puts the bundle of wood on his back, shoves the axe back into his belt, and returns to the town. He stops at a back street beside a small, broken-down shack and knocks at the window. "Who's there?" asks a frightened voice. The Litvak recognizes it as the voice of a sick Jewish woman. "I," answers the rabbi in the accent of a peasant. "Who is I?" Again, the rabbi answers in Russian. "Vasil." "Who is Vasil, and what do you want?" "I have wood to sell." Oops. I have wood to sell, very cheap. And not waiting for the woman's reply, he goes into the house. The Litvak steals in after him. In the gray light of early morning, he sees a poor room with broken, miserable furnishings. A sick woman wrapped in rags lies on the bed. She complains bitterly, "Buy! How can I buy? Where will a poor widow get money? I'll lend it to you," answers the supposed Basil. "It's only 6 cents. And how will I ever pay you back?" "Foolish one," says the rabbi reproachfully. "See, you are a sick, poor Jew, and I am ready to trust you with a little wood, and I am sure that you'll pay. While you have such a great and mighty God, and you don't trust him for 6 cents? And who will kindle the fire?" said the widow. "Have I got the strength to get up? My son is at work." "I'll kindle the fire," answers the rabbi. As the rabbi put the wood into the oven, he recited in a groan the first portion of the penitential prayers. As he kindled the fire and the wood burned brightly, he recited a bit more joyously the second portion of the penitential prayers. And when the fire was set, he recited the third portion, and then he shut the stove. The Litvak, who saw all this, became a chassid, right, a disciple, a chassid of the rabbi. And ever after, when another disciple tells how the rabbi of Nemiroff ascends to heaven at the time of the penitential prayers, the Litvak does not laugh. He only adds quietly, "If not higher." There we go. All right. So I open the floor to reactions, responses, questions, including, like why Naomi already mentioned, right, that that it's this is what Workman's Circle reads for the high holidays, and so I would love to think about what does this sort of tell us about the high holidays, and besides the fact that it takes place in this time of year, but besides that, what makes this sort of a high holiday story?
That a simple act of humanity, can supersede all kinds of laws, superstitions, whatever, that doing good for your fellow person,
Yeah,
is the highest calling.
right. Ultimately, right. The sort of presumed emphasis on service to God, right, becomes part and parcel of service to other humans, right? Specifically, a poor widow. Yeah, go ahead, Ann. You have to unmute yourself again, though. Ann, unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
It's an act that is unseen. It doesn't have a plaque attached to it. It doesn't have a testimonial attached to it. It is something personal and hidden. There's no publicity. He gets nothing out of it. you know, no good merit mark for it. And that's what charity is really supposed to be. You know, making an act is not an exchange. It is an act of giving, and you don't. It's not a commercial transaction. You don't expect publicity from it, or becoming a head of the board of directors or whatever. And I think that's the essence of it. It's humble.
Right. Yeah. I mean, why do you think the Litvak, you know, had the initial reaction that he had? You know, you know, what motivates the Litvak to go on his little quest, do you think?
I think the Litvak is a guy who believes in show me. You know, I've got to, what's this all about? He needs evidence. Well, here's evidence, but it's not legal evidence. It's not something that's written up. It's part of the rabbi's nature. It becomes a way of life that is hidden.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it has nothing to do with the rules, the laws. It's humanity.
Well, that's interesting. Right. It's very interesting, actually, right? Because it's actually, you know, an act of great piety, right? To do a mitzvah. You know, the category of the widow and the orphan, right? Usually the widow and the orphan go together. So, you know, she has a son who's working. You know, she's the widow, he's the orphan. Right? Is seen as a kind of a protected class for whom we're supposed to do things. So, in a way, there is the rabbi's being very attentive to that need. Go ahead, Ann.
On the scale of doing tzedakah or charity, tzedakah, the highest form is when the doer doesn't know who the recipient is and the recipient doesn't know who the giver is. Here, the giver knows who the recipient is, but the recipient doesn't know. So I don't know if that's the next to the top, but it's right up there near the top.
It's near the top, right? And you know, in a moment, maybe I'll go and look for you know, we can look for Rambam's ladder of charity, right? And I'm sure it's on I'm sure I can find it on the internet very quickly, and we can look, right, to see where this. To, you know, see where this would fall out. Yeah.
But there is also the idea that he who saves a life, it is as if he has saved the world. And this is very close to being in that kind of category.
Right. Right. We have a cold, sick old woman, right, with no money for wood. It seems probably very little money for food. She does have a son, but he's out, you know, he's out working. And so maybe she's not, you know, on the edge of death, but she certainly is cold. And so being able to warm her up and give her the chance to recover from her illness, is in that sense sort of saving a life, and thus the whole world. Yeah. And I wanted to ask another question, actually, on you know, I always have, you know, it's always interesting to me, right, that that the rabbi does not go to the morning penitential prayers, right? He doesn't go every morning to say his prayers in the synagogue. I guess he figures he doesn't have to be there for the minyan to happen. There's plenty of other people for a minyan. So he ends up saying them, right? Very interestingly, I think he says them in the context of lighting this fire. And so the question I have, right, is do you think the widow heard that? You know, do you think he was hiding himself, you know, after this? Or do you think that he, you know, sort of is basically, essentially revealing himself by chanting these three sections of the the high holiday of the slichus, all in, I don't know how loudly he's doing it, but yeah, go ahead, Ann.
I found the ladder of charity. The level
Oh,
three,
great.
third one from the top. Donations when the donor is aware to whom the charity is being given, but the recipient is unaware of the source. The second highest is giving assistance in such a way that the giver and recipient are unknown to each other. And the highest form is to help sustain a person before they become impoverished by offering a substantial gift in a dignified manner, or by extending a substantial loan, or by helping them find employment or establish themselves in business so as to make it unnecessary for them to become dependent on others. They attribute this to Maimonides.
Yeah. Yeah, the ladder of tzedakah is definitely attributed to, so here, right, so business partnerships with the poor is the number one, right? Anonymous giving and receiving. Oops. And number three, as you said, when the donor knows who the recipient is, right?
Oh.
Yeah. So I can share this. Right, but it's always interesting to me in this story to think about to what degree does the rabbi really know? Does the old lady know who this person is? Right. So business, as you see, business partnerships with the poor is here, right? Anonymous giving and receiving, right? No one knows who's giving or where they're coming from. And number three is when the donor knows who the recipient is. Right, and here when the recipient knows who the donor is, but the donor doesn't know, right?
Jim?
Yeah, go ahead, Ann. Yeah.
I think by not knowing who the donor is, that preserves the dignity of the giver.
Absolutely, of the receiver, yeah.
There's no sense that the person who's helped has to feel beholden for it.
Right.
That there's no sense of inequality is created. I am the I'm the lady of the manor, and here you are. I'm rescuing you. So exactly. I think it preserves the dignity of the person in need.
Right. Thank you, Naomi, and then Ann.
Yeah, I have seen a translation, and I'm trying to remember how it does this, but clear in that translation that the widow does not hear or does not understand what the
rabbi. Yes, right. That's interesting. I'm looking to see if
I'm trying to remember which way it goes, whether she's deaf or whether she's mumbling.
I'm going to look at a different translation here that I have. All right, so this is how they do it in this other translation. Foolish creature, the Rebbe upbraids her. See here, you are a poor sick Jewess, and I am willing to trust you with this little bundle of wood. I believe that in time you will repay me. And you have such a great and mighty God, and you do not trust him, not even to the amount of a miserable 6 groschen for a little bundle of wood. And who is to light the stove, groans the widow. I just love this. She's like, he answers one objection and she just objects again. No. Do I look like I'm going to get up to do it? And my son away at work? I will also light the stove for you, said the Rebbe. Right? And the Rebbe, while he laid the wood in the stove, repeated, groaning, the first part of the slichus. And then when the stove was alight and the wood crackled cheerily, he reported more gaily the second part. He repeated the third part when the fire had burned itself out, and he shut the stove doors. So interesting. In this one he seems to stay. It implies that he stays for the entire duration of the burning.
Yeah, I had not seen that.
But this one is no more clear than the other one about whether it was, to what degree he was audible to the old woman. Go ahead, Ann.
Different Ann. Oh, okay.
Oh, I meant Ann.
Whitaker or Umansky?
Ann from Oregon, and then Ann, then the other Ann.
Well, I had remembered it that the unknown giver and the unknown receiver was the highest level, but it's interesting to learn, because I hadn't remembered that the highest is to help sustain a person before they become impoverished by offering a substantial gift. And it reminds me back to the high holidays one time when my middle son was between high school and college, and a friend of ours that we knew who had a business asked what David was doing. And he said, well, he's taken a year between high school and college and he's looking for a job. And so Fred said, send him over to me. I'll give him a job. And it was the most thankless job in the world, but it was a job, and David stuck with it all that year. So
Right. I mean, having a job is a good thing. So,
right.
yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Ann, and then Phyllis, and then Jean.
I was just moving the computer. I didn't have my hand.
Oh, got it. Okay, Phyllis, and then Jean.
I'm sorry, I look at this story a little bit differently than the way the discussion is going. So for me,
Okay, good.
fire is intensely symbolic, and it's related together with the prayers, and it suggests the magic of life. And you know that's his peculiar talent of using the most basic actions to for mystic symbolism. I mean, it's just marvelous.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm really moved by this. I don't know exactly what it means, but I'm very moved, right, that the story is not just about giving the widow the wood, right? It's about somehow making her space a holy space through his own presence, through the fire, as you say, right, and through his groaning prayers, right? There's some sort of
right, exactly, true,
right,
yes,
and so there's something about him, his presence in her house, which if he were really a Russian peasant, it might seem a little odd, not just that he gives her the wood for nothing, but also that he just hangs out in her house all day.
Yeah.
So again, I'm sort of wondering if everyone in the story if everyone in the town actually does know where the Rebbe is, right? He's not really fooling anyone, but that's how he builds up his sort of his own and his community's muscles for the spiritual muscles for the high holidays. Yeah, go ahead, Jean.
Interesting.
Is this the only time of the year that the rabbi does this?
That's a great question.
Very good question.
It's not a question that has occurred to me before. I mean, he does say during the Slichas time. Now, what's interesting about that is that Slichas time in the Ashkenazi world, right, is pretty short. It starts on the Saturday evening before Rosh Hashanah. And so usually there's only going to be one Friday morning before Rosh Hashanah. So there's this sort of odd thing when it says every Friday morning during Slichot time. So I don't know if there are folks, in the world of Peretz, who follow the Sephardic custom, right, which is a little different, and they say the penitential prayers. Slichot is the word for penitential prayers. They say the penitential prayers, all during the month of Elul. So from a month before Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur, the only days they don't say it are the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So there would be enough Fridays in that kind of a context to say, every Friday but then would have maybe thought that he would say every Friday during the month of Elul, but I don't know. But the point is that there's something about these prayers that we say primarily only at this time of year. But it's a great question, Gene.
I would
Go ahead, Naomi.
I would doubt that Peretz was speaking of the Sephardic tradition, but it puts a light on this that I had never thought about.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is that there are many Hasidic groups who do follow a sort of hybrid of Ashkenazi and Sephardic practice.
Yeah.
And so it's quite possible that that's how this rabbi rolled, but I've not heard of that. But again, my knowledge of this is not at the level of an expert, but I could certainly ask some of my betters. Go ahead, Ann.
Naomi,
It's on you.
oh, it's unmuted now, right?
Yeah.
Naomi said, but that's what happened with Moses. Are you thinking of when he disappeared on the mountain for all those days and came back with the 10 words? What did you mean by that, Naomi?
Oh yeah, Naomi. When you said that happened to Moses?
Moses never got to heaven. Moses was always suspended 2.5 feet below.
I never heard that before. That's interesting.
Or at least everything that I have ever heard or read, which I got to admit is not deep, was that Moses was suspended 2.5 feet below heaven and never quite made it in.
That was new to me.
I would be glad to be corrected on this because it seems very unfair.
Well, I mean, I think it was.
What
Go
I-
ahead, Ann.
Promised land, but
That's a concept that's new to me. But what I heard was that he never got to the Holy Land.
Right.
Okay.
No, he never did that either.
Right. So I mean, I think what I understood is he never got to heaven while he was alive. Right. The idea is that Moses, right, in going up the mountain, did not ascend to heaven. Although there are places in the Talmud that suggest that in fact he did, right, and that the angels were very upset, that he was up there and so on and so forth. So I'd have to do a little bit more poking around, but I think the idea would be, right, that God descended, right, to meet Moses at the top of the mountain, and maybe it was figured as like, Moses got up to 2.5 feet so that, God didn't have to come down that much. So I don't know.
So,
I mean, 2.5 feet is not 6 feet. So it's, they weren't exactly social distancing. So it's, I don't know if you have to social distance with God, but that's another question.
well, he's certainly social distancing with us.
I'm sorry? All right, so I love this idea, right, that that the rabbi is bringing life, right? It's not just charity to the old woman, right? He's bringing her life, and that his response to her, right, is really remarkable in that, she is a help rejecter, right? She's so beaten down, she thinks that, nothing could help. No one, who would help me? I don't have any money. I'm really weak. I can't do anything. My son's not even here to take care of me, whatever. And he just doesn't let that, right, get in the way, right? He builds the fire. He says his prayers, and he stays with her. And, through the whole cycle of the fire.
Well, not only is he revealed, but we also see the metamorphosis of the Litvak.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a very basic change for him.
Yeah. Right. That sort of change and the thing that's powerful, I mean, for me at least, in that change is that the Litvak is not finally convinced by any kind of argument, right? He's not convinced by any logical proof, right? On the contrary, right, he is changed by his experience, right, of the rabbi's presence and the rabbi's actions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I think, go ahead.
I'm just being a little flip. Nowadays, someone would say, "Judge me not by my words, but by my actions." You know, that's
Right.
sort of.
Right, and the rabbi doesn't say anything, right, in his own voice. He only talks in Russian. He doesn't say anything in Yiddish, right?
Right.
So his words are in their own way actions, you know, and everything else he says is somewhere between a groan and a prayer, right? So, and maybe that's why, you know, no one can understand what he says, because it's, you know, his prayers, even though they're language, they come out as groans. You know, who knows? I mean, although he seems very happy, you know, the idea of that is actually one of the things I love about the Slichot service that we have, is that it's incredibly sad prayers, but by the end of it, at least I feel so much better. You know, there's some relief. Yeah, go ahead, Jean.
Oh, I was going to say something related to that the rabbi seems to be changed also, because it says as he prays more joyously. And so
yes,
that the act of helping this woman is also changing him.
Yes, right. And again, like that, you know, to sort of get back to what we were saying before about, you know, saving a life, saving a world, right, is that very often, you know, the person that is happiest as a consequence of doing a mitzvah is the person who did the mitzvah, right? That you know, doing the mitzvah ends up being its own reward, whether we see that as a commandment of God or we see it as a good deed we do for someone else. Of course, those things are not mutually exclusive, but sometimes people think they are. So unless anyone has something to add, I would love to just invite everybody as we prepare for the high holidays, and this includes everyone, you know, Jewish or not Jewish, to sort of say something that we're thinking about as we move into the new year. And, you know, I always think that New Year's are good. I have some colleagues who don't like to celebrate the secular New Year because, you know, it's the secular New Year, it's not the Jewish New Year. But I always feel that any opportunity that we are given to sort of reflect on what's come before and to sort of think about what we aspire to in the future, we should take advantage of it. So I invite anyone just to, you know, unmute yourselves and share a little bit about what's on your minds as we exit this crazy year that we've had. Just never imagined we would have a year like this, but here it is.
We're exiting it, but the things that have driven it are still with us.
Yes. 100%. I've been thinking about that and thinking that, you know, just as many of the things that are really assailing us now are the results of sort of built up issues that have, none of these things really sort of, even though some of them seem to sort of pop out of nowhere, they really haven't. We can sort of trace the trajectory of them. And so I'm hoping that this is sort of the high points, and that we are able to begin to move down that ladder of anger and sickness and hatred and all the stuff that we're struggling with right now.
It would be nice to have a year of healing.
It would. It really would. And what's on your mind?
Oh, I don't know. A lot of things are on my mind. I was just thinking, and this is off the page a little. You said the rabbi groans, and that's a key word. And I just wanted to say, a Yiddish groan is like no other groan. Even the word for it is great, because the word is krechts. It has a kind of comes up from your innards, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's something that comes out. It comes up from the, from the. It's not just not just an emotion, right? It's a bodily experience, right?
It zooms in. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's one of the reasons I like to describe Jewish prayer as it's a full contact sport. Luckily, without banging into one another, but it's it's fully embodied. One of the weird things about Zoom is that we're all in our own little pod, and looking at each other through the screen is very strange. Go ahead, Ann. And
I was thinking about this a couple of days ago, and then it came up again in my book group today. How do we ask forgiveness of somebody that's either died or no longer have any idea where they are?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard enough to ask forgiveness of people who are still around, much less of people who are no longer with us.
Yeah. But again, it's something that you do for yourself, that you have to do for yourself in the absence of the other person, and maybe hope that they hear you.
Right, and I do think, right, that there's a very very powerful concept about Yom Kippur, right? That Yom Kippur, on its own can't take care of the sins that you may have committed against another person, right? That you need to go and atone to that person, right? But that Yom Kippur really can make atonement for the sins between you and God, right? Things that you've done against God. And I've thought for many years, that the hardest part of that, right, is to sort of figure out, how can you forgive yourself, right? Whether you've done something to someone else or you've done something to yourself, right? That getting someone else to forgive you is one thing, but to forgive yourself for that thing that you did can often be really, really difficult. And I think that that's one of the powerful aspects of the ritual that we have. It sort of gives us this opportunity in a ritualized way to forgive ourselves for not being better than we are. And in a sense, maybe that's even what the Litvak is sort of doing, in his sort of changed state, right? He doesn't apologize to the rabbi, right? He doesn't make any big deal of it, right? He just says, if not higher, right? If not higher.
Mhm. I love the story.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful story.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for
Yes.
participating and for, I hope, enjoying the story and the conversation. And I will, Marjorie and Phyllis, I'll plan to call you tonight for our conversation about the David story. Everyone else, please feel free to join us if you'd like to. And we will, I will catch up with you all, I hope soon.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.